The body maintains a core temperature of around 37 degrees Celsius, 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, through various mechanisms, but extreme conditions or the failure of the body's coping mechanisms can cause a dangerous change in that core temperature. When the core temperature drops as little as 2 degrees Celsius, the casualty is said to be hypothermic. Hypothermia may happen when the casualty is not dressed properly for the environment, or when they get suddenly wet and their clothing becomes less insulating. Immersion hyperthermia happens when someone is in cold water for long periods of time. There are 3 groups of people who are especially vulnerable to hypothermia. Elderly people, because they often have poor circulation, less ability to sense the cold, and may be on medication that promotes heat loss. Babies have less ability to recover from mild and moderate hypothermia because they lose heat more quickly and their bodies don't control body heat as well. People who are already weakened due to illness, injury, lack of food, fatigue, or through the use of alcohol or drugs. The body loses heat in 5 ways. Radiation. Heat radiates from the body into the air around it. Conduction. Heat moves directly from the body to a cold object that the body is touching. Breathing. Cold air is inhaled, warmed by the body and exhaled, causing heat loss. Evaporation. Body heat is used to evaporate liquid on the skin. Convection. The thin layer of warm air around the body is replaced by cooler air, which the body must now heat. The body has a number of ways to minimize heat loss and keep the body core warm. The muscle action of shivering generates heat. By shivering, the body is trying to warm itself. If the body keeps getting colder, the blood vessels in the arms, legs, and at the skin surface get smaller. This keeps the blood in the core, where it is warmest. By doing this, the body core uses the surface tissues to insulate itself from the cold. If heat loss continues, the body processes will get slower. This includes thinking, muscular action, and the senses. Shivering will become uncontrollable and then will slow down and eventually stop as the muscles become exhausted. The muscles get stiff and movements become jerky. Thinking is confused, speech difficult, and the senses dulled. The heart and breathing rates slow down, and the person eventually loses consciousness. At this point, the condition is very serious. The heartbeat becomes unsteady and faint, and finally, the heart will stop. A casualty in mild hypothermia will still be conscious and will be shivering. They may act withdrawn. Getting them warmed and dry will quickly reverse the temperature drop. Give them warm drinks, ideally with no caffeine, and ongoing care. A casualty in moderate hypothermia may have stopped shivering and will be irrational or confused. They may not be able to swallow hot fluids, but getting them warm and dry can help immediately. If you cannot move indoors, protect the casualty from the wind, loosen or remove tight clothing. Wet clothing causes severe heat loss. If you are in a shelter and have a dry change of clothes, gently replace wet clothes with dry ones. If you don't have dry clothes, press as much water out of the wet clothes as possible and wrap the casualty with something windproof. Insulate the casualty from cold objects. Have him sit on a rolled-up jacket or lie on a blanket. Call for medical aid. A severely hypothermic casualty loses consciousness. Breathing and pulse may be very slow and weak. If the core temperature drops too far, the heart can go into an arrhythmia. Handle them gently and get them warm and dry as soon as possible. Call for medical aid.